stands. They haven't made a great deal of progress, but it is an incredibly difficult decision of how you combat it. But it is a serious, serious problem. People didn't believe the damage that Sandy did. We need to plan for it. We are going to have that after the election in January, a major meeting with the community with the plans from the city, state, and federal government on the so-called resiliency plan, how they're going to build out in ways they're going to try to protect us.
Thank you, Congresswoman Maloney. And Mr. Rabin?
Well, I want to thank Mrs. Maloney, who has a wealth of statistics and all kinds of good stuff after all these many years. I have a couple of things. I've watched the water rise. I've watched a silly thing pulling out of a conference in France, which, whether it was rules or no rules, it's a platform to discuss all of these issues. So I think we have things like the YRC, which is called Youth Reaction Corps, and it helps with the natural disasters, which will increase every single day. I have another one called the DPC. We do this all over the world. AmeriCorps. What is the DPC? Domestic Peace Corps. These are fresh, innovative proposals that we can take our youth, and instead of standing them idly by, looking at the ruination of this thing, okay, this thing is a disaster. So kids learn the disaster. Put them to work. Let them do volunteer work. And put them in what I call the new version of the American draft. Not just military. Service to your country. The YRC, the Youth Reaction Corps, first responders, the DPC, Domestic Peace Corps, teaching people nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you're going to deal with natural disasters. You will deal with every single disaster that you could possibly think of if you have a simple word called education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rabin. And Mr. Hutchins?
Well, clearly we have a serious issue with disaster recovery in this country. I mean, if you look at what's going on in Puerto Rico, it's essentially basically disaster capitalism, because you've got these capitalists going in there, buying things out and turning it, and they're trying to turn it into a paradise for rich people, whereas the Puerto Ricans themselves are flooding onto the mainland because they're not going to be able to afford the projects that are being done by CAP, because there's too much of this outsourcing. There's not enough that's being done by the government, especially with Trump pulling out of there. And then you have the issues with the hurricanes in Texas, where the ACLU had to sue because they were trying to deny people any kind of FEMA restorations because they were supporting the boycott, divestment, sanction movement, and eventually the ACLU got that overturned. So they were coming up with excuses not to help people. We don't want to help the Puerto Ricans because they're Hispanic. We don't want to help these people in Texas because they're not supporting what Israel's doing. So the main thing is we got to make sure that the government comes in and does its job, and you can't let these private investors use these disasters for profit. That's one of the major factors that we've got going on here, and you can look at what's going on in Puerto Rico. You can see that happening right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hutchins.
This next question is from the audience. Candidates, what do you see as the most effective way to lower prescription drug prices, especially for older Americans? How can we motivate drug companies to innovate and create even more effective medications without subjecting those who require medication to pay ever-increasing costs? And I'd like to start the question with Mr. Rabin.
Okay, well, I've been there, done that. Straight out. I wasn't an opioid addict, but I was a marijuana addict. And I broke it myself. Is it addictive? No more so than alcohol. So let's get to it. In Canada, the drugs are half the price and then some lower than here. Drugs coming in from China via Mexico is a disaster. And it's more of a disaster waiting to happen. Doctors, rather than treat people physically, rather treat them falsely by covering up their pain, by giving them pills. and you get addicted to these pills, and you have a real rough time in getting out of such a horrible, horrible habit. I have a friend who wanted to help us on the campaign recently. He couldn't help us on the campaign. He couldn't even walk to this building because of what he's doing to himself, and he's stuck. How would I fix that? It has to do with health care. It has to do with Medicare, Medicaid. It has to do with dealing with these drug companies whose excuse is research. It costs enormous amounts to develop a particular medication for a particular disease. But why does it cost so much here and not elsewhere? Again, I don't know the answers. I don't have the details. But I will find out whether I'm elected or not. I will find out because it is hurting this country in so many ways that it's actually hard to describe when you're losing 70,000 people a year to opioids and drugs.
Thank you, Mr. Rabin. Mr. Hudgens, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would. I think one of the biggest problems with getting people medication they can afford is the for-profit drug companies. Take, for example, AZT. That was developed by Duke University and several other federally funded programs. Somehow GlaxoSmithKline was able to acquire the rights for AZT and drive the cost up for that medication. So only wealthy people with HIV could actually afford this medication. So this is a major issue, and one of the key things that we need to do is stop these drug companies from acquiring these drugs that have been made in our federally and locally funded universities. When our money is being put into the research of these drugs, therefore they should be used to benefit the people. They shouldn't be used to get people giant profits. We got these people like Teal and all these others and Shkreli. A lot of times they're just buying these things and developing public funds, and that people should not have the right to buy the rights to drugs and develop public funds.
Thank you, Mr. Hudgens. And now, Congresswoman Maloney.
The high cost of prescription drugs is a very huge problem in this country. I'm supporting legislation in Congress that would allow the government to negotiate lower drug prices in any drugs that they buy for the Affordable Care Act or any program that is associated with the federal government. Right now, they're prevented from doing it. They can do it in the military hospitals and the veterans hospitals, but not in the Affordable Care Act. That's just common sense to allow them to negotiate for a lower price. We have approached the high cost of drugs by developing generic drugs. So after a period of time, usually 6 years, they go into generic drugs where the drug that is developed by the private sector or the private research group then becomes available to the public under a different name. It is the same drug. It's called a generic drug, and it's far cheaper. So we need to do that also. I for one, would support controls on drug prices for the abuses that some companies have done, where they buy a company that has a cure for one particular disease, and then they know people will die if they don't have that drug, and then they run up the price through the roof that no one can afford. And that, I think, is almost criminal. But there's opposition to that from the Republican leadership. This is an area of grave concern in America. But also it's important that we know that our drugs are safe. And a lot of times when you are taking imported drugs, you don't know exactly what is in that drug. And so that, I think, is a health threat to people. When you have a drug prepared by an American company, we know what is in that drug. It is a federal crime to have any tampering with it. When it comes in from a foreign country, there is a danger there. And so healthcare is incredibly important. We do need more and more work in that area, and the high cost of prescription drugs is part of our overall healthcare reform that I'm dedicated to working on.
Thank you, Congresswoman Maloney.
I do want to apologize to the audience. In this last few minutes, we've had a flurry of very good questions, but we are unfortunately out of time for these three candidates. for our questioning phase. So we're now going to transition to closing statements from each of the candidates, beginning with Congresswoman Maloney. 1 minute.
What can I say? It's an incredible honor to represent what I think is some of the most accomplished and intelligent people and probably the United States. And everybody says, where do you get all your ideas for all your bills? They really come from the people I represent, that they come to me with their ideas. And I'm so proud of everything that this community has contributed. We're the leaders in finance and arts and healthcare, you name it. And it's been an incredible honor to be able to work with you and support this community in building infrastructure projects we need, like the 2nd Avenue subway, the East Side access, the 61st Street connector. Gateway, that's not my district. Not my district. But I'm for it. I'm for it, and it's good jobs and it's good things. I just want to close that what really came out of the Kavanaugh hearings to me, and I sat through all of the hearings, was the realization that we cannot control who's going to be appointed to the Supreme Court, but we can control the underlying document, the Constitution. We have the right to amend it, to work for changes. And in this next Congress, after what has happened, I want to pass the Equal Rights Amendment and ratify it. So women's equality, health care, and really protection against assault. Right now, women cannot even appeal to the Supreme Court in cases of rape and assault. So this, I think, is something I want to accomplish. I think it's the most important thing I could do, because when you empower women, you empower a country. When women succeed, a country succeeds. And I feel that together we can change that underlying, documented. Pardon me?
Everybody should have it. It's very easy.
Okay.
Throw it right in your pocketbook.
Okay,
But we need to put these protections in.
candidates speak.
Okay. My time's up. He's telling me to stop. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Maloney. Mr. Rabin?
Anybody here object to this document? It's called the Constitution. Probably the single most important thing in this document is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's me. And I thank you all for coming, and this hadn't been enough time for us to really get into this stuff. But what does it mean? Pursuit, community, life. Well, if we all work together, be together, and unite together in this heterogeneous society that we have, and talk to each other, and work with each other, and you can't get rid of the profit motive. The profit motive is what drives the country. I know I got 10 seconds. I'll go a little over that if you guys don't mind. All right? And I'd love to do this again with all of us sitting here. But I'm new blood. I'm an old guy with new blood. I got a 16-year-old boy. I'm 76 years old. I'll stop now because I hope he was listening, but he can't because this ain't been recorded. The bottom line is what we really need to do is come together as a country. All of us. Green, blue, brown, yellow, beige, polka dot, every kind of person, okay? We need to come together as a country. Otherwise, we ain't gonna have no country. Period.
Thank you. And Mr. Hutchins?
In all probability, our neighboring District 14 is going to be sending a very progressive person to Congress named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And my platform is very similar with hers. And Maloney has a very good record dealing with social issues, but when it comes to economic issues, she supported the border fence, she supported deregulating the banks, she supported deregulating commodities. These issues have really hurt people, and these are things that we need to deal with, and they're really, it pushes her closer to Trump, and we don't need to send someone like that to Congress again. Her policies have not necessarily been good when it comes to economics. She makes a lot of personal profit on things like the 2nd Avenue subway. We really need to take a look at what she's been doing. And it's been a mix of good things and it's been a mix of bad things. And I think I want to go there and do what's right and make sure that everyone is healthy, not just 1%. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt. The audience, thank all of you very much for participating in the Congressional District 12 debate. We'll be following this up after a short break with the debate for the candidates for the New York
Point
State.
of personal privilege. I object to his statement that I am making accusation that I am making money off the 2nd Avenue subway. I have never made a dime off of it. I've worked my heart out trying to put the money together to make it happen, and have worked with the workers and the MTA and every leader in this city to make that happen. And I would like an apology, or you show your proof. There's too much time. I don't have time to sue you, but if I did have time, I would, because that's an outrageous statement against my personal integrity, and it's absolutely wrong, and I'm deeply offended.
Well, I apologize. That comment was based on hearsay. The person was helping with my campaign. He told me about a book that has their whole first. It's all about people making money off deals in Congress, and he told me they spent the whole first chapter talking about you and the 2nd Avenue subway deal. So I apologize for not doing the due diligence in my research.
Excuse me, who said that?
Thank you. That will now conclude the debate for Congressional District number 12. We will have a short break and return in roughly 10
I would like to
minutes.
make a point of clarification since everyone else did. Very simple, okay? If you really want to fix this place, you need to get rid of the money in Congress, and that means lobbyists, which means term limits, which means a different way to finance elections, through you and me giving $1 here and $1 there. And I want you all to go and get the New York Post and just read this. Very simple. Have students pass a citizenship test in this country, and you'll have the first step toward progress in coming together. But you need to get rid of the dollars in their pocket. And if you could do that, I'm not accusing you or anybody else, but lobbyists, good, bad, or indifferent, suck.
All right, thank you very much. Right. So we'll have a 5-minute break and we'll come back here for the second part. Thank you, candidates.
Good job, Mr.
Thank you very much.
You all pick up a newspaper in the back. It tells you who we are, what we do.
Thank you for participating.
You're cool, girl.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, I'm gonna come by your store.
Well, you already been there.
Good. Was I?
You were my customer list.
Oh, I've been
Yeah,
there.
I didn't know, but they didn't have to take you off. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you.
No, you shouldn't.
I'm sure I will.